Laura sat in the cage, her knees pulled to her chest, shivering in the cold air. Her silver skin was covered in dirt, and the metal collar around her neck burned every time she moved too much. She hadn't eaten in days. Her stomach made small. Noises, but no one cared. Outside the cage, aliens walked back and forth. Buyers, traders, and worse. This was the slave market on Varnak Station, deep in the outer rings. Laura's people had been captured months ago, and now many were sold off, like broken toys. She was one of the last ones left. A loud, sharp voice echoed through the speakers. Lot 349. Young female, trained for silence, still untouched. Starting bid, 2,000 credits. Laura closed her eyes. She didn't want to hear the numbers. She didn't want to see the faces. She knew what was coming. Someone would buy her, take her away, hurt her, and then sell her again. Voices shouted bids. 2,000, 2,500, 3,000, and I want her tonight. Laura's fingers tightened into the cage floor. Her breath shook. Her body was thin, weak, but her mind was still fighting. She didn't want to be owned, not again. Then the noise stopped. Silence. Everyone looked in one direction. Someone had stepped forward from the crowd, slowly with heavy boots, a middle-aged human walked into view. His hair was graying, short, and his face had scars. He wore a dark coat, long and dusty. His eyes, cold, quiet, studied Laura without blinking. The trader's voice dropped. Sir? Human, you want to bid? The man didn't answer right away. He looked at Laura for a long moment. Not like a buyer, not like a monster. Then he nodded. Once 5,000. Final gasps filled the room. Sold. The trader said quickly. He didn't want to argue with a human, especially one who looked like that. Laura didn't move as the cage door opened. She expected rough hands, maybe. Electric rods, but none came. The human crouched near her. His voice was calm. Can you walk? She stared at him, eyes wide. No answer. He didn't force her. He took off his coat and wrapped it around her thin body. She flinched, but the fabric was warm, not a weapon, just warmth. He didn't say anything else, just stood up and waited. Laura slowly stood, her legs shaking. Her feet were bare, cut and cold, but something in his silence made her follow. She didn't understand it. Fear told her to run. Her body told her to obey, but her heart felt something strange. She walked. Beside him, holding the coat tightly, other buyers whispered as they passed. Why would a human pay that much? She's not even a worker type. Maybe he likes them young. Laura heard it all, and she believed them. Humans were the worst. Her kind called them shadow kings. Once they showed mercy, but not anymore. The man led her through metal halls and into a small docking bay. A simple ship waited, their old dark gray with the name Sparrow painted in white on the side. He pressed a button, and the ramp opened with a hiss. Still he said nothing. She followed him inside. Every second her heart beat faster. She was ready for the pain, the collar, the cuffs, the chains. But what came next confused her even more. He pointed to a small room with a bed. You can rest here, Laura. Blinked, no chains, no orders. He turned and walked away. She stood in the room alone, too scared to sit. She waited. 10 minutes. 20. Nothing. Just silence. Then a soft knock. The door opened. He placed a small plate of warm food on the floor, not even near her, just enough distance to show. No threat. He left again. Laura stared at the plate. Meat, bread. A bottle of clean water? She didn't trust it. But hunger was stronger than fear. Slowly she crawled to the food and ate fast like an animal. Her body shook from the taste. Real food, not waste. Hours passed. She fell asleep on the bed, warm, full, unharmed. The next morning, the human stood outside the door. I'm not your master, he said. I'm just someone who couldn't watch that happen again. She didn't understand. He walked away again. Laura sat on the bed, her fingers touching the collar on her neck. It still glowed red. She wasn't free. Not yet. But something inside her began to hope. The next day, Laura opened her eyes and felt something she hadn't felt in months' silence. Not the heavy silence of fear, but the gentle kind. No shouting, no buzzing collars, no chains dragging on metal floors. She was still wrapped in the thick coat. It smelled like the man-like smoke, old leather, and something calm. His scent didn't frighten her. It was strange, but not dangerous. The room she lay in was small but clean. There was no camera in the corner, no control panel on the wall, and no lock on the inside of the door. That in itself scared her. She was used to being locked in. She moved slowly toward the door. It wasn't locked. Carefully, she pushed it open and peeked outside. He was sitting on the floor in the hallway, cross-legged with an old toolbox open in front of him. He was fixing something, maybe part of the ship's vent system. He didn't look up. "You slept for 14 hours, he said, his voice calm and quiet. She didn't answer. He reached into the toolbox, still not looking at her. "There's a fresh change of clothes folded on the counter. Not much, but warmer than what you had." Laura looked down at herself. She was still wearing the thin cloth the slavers gave her, torn and barely covering her. She stepped back inside and found what he mentioned. A folded gray shirt, thick pants, even socks. She changed in silence. Her hands trembled the whole time, not from cold, but from confusion. This wasn't normal. This wasn't what happened to girls like her. She stepped out again. He was gone. The smell of food drifted from the front of the ship. Carefully, she followed it. She found him in the small kitchen, frying something in a pan. When he saw her, he nodded toward the table. "Sit." She hesitated. "I don't bite," he said, voice flat but not unkind. "And I don't force. Sit if you want. Walk away if you don't." That word "don't force" hit her hard. She sat. He placed a plate in front of her. Eggs, toast, a strange red sauce she didn't recognize. She stared at the food. He sat across from her and began to eat his own meal. Quiet, peaceful. Laura took a bite. It was warm, real. Her stomach didn't twist in fear after swallowing. Her throat didn't close. Halfway through the meal, she couldn't hold the silence anymore. "Why?" she whispered. He looked at her. "Why? What? Why didn't you touch me or chain me?" Her voice was barely louder than a breath. He put down his fork. "I didn't buy you to own you." "Then why?" Her voice cracked. "You spent 5,000 credits on me?" "No one does that unless they want something." The man leaned back in his chair, eyes tired but clear. "I spent it because I couldn't walk away again." Laura's eyes narrowed. Again. He looked away. "A long time ago, I was a soldier. I saw a girl in a cage, just like you. I hesitated. Didn't help. She was taken, hurt, sold. I never saw her again." He looked back at her, serious now. "I told myself, if I ever saw another, I wouldn't turn away." Laura couldn't speak. Her throat closed. He stood, picked up the plates, washed them like it was just another morning. No chains, no cuffs, no commands. She watched every move. Every time he turned his back, she waited for pain, but none came. Later, she sat in the hallway. Again, unsure of what to do, she pressed her hand against the collar on her neck. It was quiet today. No shocks, but it still glowed red. That glow meant ownership. Somewhere her old master still had access. He passed by, holding a blanket. Stopped. "You cold?" She nodded once. He draped the blanket over her shoulders, careful not to touch her skin. Then he walked away again. She watched him disappear into the back of the ship. She didn't understand. Was this a trick? Was he waiting for her to trust him so he could break her later? That night, she stayed awake on the bed, staring at the ceiling, when sleep finally came. She dreamed not of chains or pain, but of warmth, and of hand-rooming a hand instead of a whip. The ship moved quietly through deep space. No alarms, no screaming voices. It's just the soft hum of old engines pushing the small vessel forward. Inside, Laura stood near a window, watching the stars pass by like falling snow. She had never seen stars this way before, free from a cage. Not through metal bars or glass too thick to break. Her hands clutched the blanket tighter around her shoulders. It still smelled like the human faint smoke and metal, but the scent was no longer scary. It made her feel safe. She hated that she was starting to feel that. He hadn't asked her to clean, hadn't given her orders. He barely spoken less. She spoke first, but today felt different. He was sitting at the small table again, a datapad in his hand, reading silently. The light above him was warm and soft. She stepped closer, her bare feet quiet on the cold floor. He didn't look up. Couldn't. Sleep. She didn't answer at first. Then she asked, "Why do you never ask questions?" He finally looked at her, because I remember what it felt like to be asked things I wasn't ready to answer. Laura sat slowly on the other side of the table. Her eyes stayed on his face. "You don't even know my name," she said quietly. He gave a small nod. "That's true? You don't want to know?" He set the datapad down. "I want you to give it to me. When you feel ready." Choose that word again. Choose. Laura's throat tightened. Her hands trembled under the table. She looked away, eyes burning. "I've had 7 names," she whispered. "Each master gave me a new one and took the last one away." The human didn't interrupt. "They called me Thing Pet. Silver. Object number 2287. Once a master called me Beauty. Only when he wanted me to smile for guests." She shook her head slowly. "I forgot my real name." He leaned forward, eyes kind, but calm. "You still have it," he said. "It's just waiting inside you, like a light under ashes." Silence hung in the room. Then so soft it could barely be heard, she said, "Laura." His face didn't change. He simply nodded once. "Laura," he said slowly, as if the name was fragile. "That suits you?" She didn't expect what happened next. Tears. Hot, fast, and sudden. She covered her face with both hands. She didn't want him to see. Crying was weakness. Crying made the masters angry. Crying made the pain worse. But his voice came again, soft. "You're allowed to cry here." She let it happen. Just for a few seconds. Then she wiped her face and stood. "I'm going back to bed." "Good night, Laura." As she walked away, something inside her shifted. Not trust. Yet trust. Not yet, but something warmer. A seed. Spark the next morning, something woke her. A sound. Buzz. It came from under her skin. Her eyes flew open. Pain spread from the back of her neck. The collar. She sat up, breathing fast. The red glow on the collar had turned blue, a tracking signal. That meant someone was trying to find her. She ran to the hallway. He was already at the control panel, his fingers flying over the buttons. "They found the signal," he said, eyes focused. It just pinged off a slaver beacon for systems back. Heart pounded. "What does that mean?" He looked at her now. "It means they're following. They know you're not in a cage anymore. They want you back." She backed away, shaking her head. "No, I can't go back. I'll die." You're not going back," he said firmly. "I promised you that the day I took you from that cage." But the collar, he held up a small device. "I can't remove it here. It's deep in your skin, near your spine. Wired into your nervous system. One wrong move and it'll paralyze you." She froze. "Then what do we do?" "Know someone. A doctor off-grid, not part of the galactic system. She works with rebels, runaways, broken people." Laura stared at him. He stood and pulled a coat over his shoulders. "If I ask her, yes." "How do you know?" Glanced at her, then turned to prep the engines. "She's my sister." Asterisk, the stars outside the ship began to blur. Lines of light stretching as the ship entered a silent jump, tunnel faster than light, deeper than normal space. Laura sat strapped into a seat, her hands clenched tightly together. Collar itched against her skin. It still glowed faint blue now, blinking slowly, reminding her that someone, somewhere, was still looking for her. Across from her, the human sat at the controls. He hadn't said much since the jump started. His face was calm, but his fingers tapped the console again and again, like he was thinking hard. After what felt like forever, the stars returned. A planet came into view, a small frozen moon with gray mist swirling across its surface. Mountains stood like sharp teeth, and lightning flickered in the clouds. "That's it?" she asked. He nodded. "Vera's down there, deep under the ice. No government, no patrols, just survivors and ghosts." Laura swallowed hard. "And your sister? She left the army after a war none of us wanted. Now she helps people like you." The ship lowered slowly, winds battering the hull.
Ow.
Gripped her seat tighter. She wanted the collar off. She wanted it gone now, but fear pressed against her chest, like ice. The landing was rough. The ship touched down between tall frozen rocks, the engine steaming against the snow. The human stood, grabbed a black case, and handed Laura a thick coat and gloves. "You'll need these." She nodded, not arguing. They stepped into the cold wind together. The sky above was dark, thick with clouds. Every step made the snow crunch beneath their boots. Laura stayed close. Her fingers kept brushing the collar, afraid it might shock her or burn. They walked toward a crack in the ice wall. A hidden door opened as they approached. It wasn't metal, just old stone and tech buried in snow. The human knocked once, then twice fast, then once more it slid open. A woman stood inside. Her hair was silver, shaved on one side. One cybernetic eye glowed softly red. Her arms were scarred and strong. She wore a long, dark coat, similar to the man's brother. She said simply, "Vera." He nodded. Then her eyes shifted to Laura. She scanned the girl head to toe, pausing at the collar. "I see," she murmured. "She needs it removed," the human said. Vera stepped aside. "Bring her in." The inside of the base was warm, dry, and quiet. A fire burned in a metal drum. Shelves were full of tools and medical gear. No one else was there. Vera led Laura to a padded table. "Sit, let me scan your neck." Laura sat slowly, her whole body shaking. Vera pressed a small scanner to the back of her neck. A faint hum filled the air. "This one's deep," she muttered. "Military grade, slaver version." Hidden needles attached to the spinal column. The human stood beside them, arms crossed. "Can you remove it?" Vera looked at him. "Yes, but if I make even a half-millimeter mistake, she won't walk again. Or breathe." Laura's breath caught.
What?
"Is there no other way?" "Not if you want to be free," Vera said gently. "But I won't do it unless you say yes." That word against choice. Laura looked from Vera to the man, said nothing, just waited. "Trusted her," she nodded. Vera took a deep breath. "Lie down, face down. Breathe slowly." Laura obeyed. The table was cold. Her heart pounded in her ears. The scanner beeped again. Then she felt it a sharp sting, then burning heat. Vera's voice was calm. "I'm cutting around the collar's roots. Don't move. Don't talk." Laura bit her arm to stop herself from screaming. The pain crawled down her spine. Hot tears fell from her eyes. Then snap. The collar blinked once, then went dark. Laura gasped. Vera pulled the pieces free and dropped them in a metal box. Done. Laura lay still for a long moment, tears still running down her cheeks. But this time, they were tears of relief. The human placed a hand on her shoulder. Gentle. "Careful. You're free now." Laura looked up at him. "For real?" she asked, voice shaking. He nodded. "No signals. No ownership. No one can track you now." Vera stepped back, "But they'll come anyway. They'll guess what we did. That collar pinged just before you landed. You've got maybe one day before they send ships." The human turned to her. "Then we leave tonight." Later, as Laura sat near the fire, the human wrapped a new scarf around her neck. Just soft cloth, nothing glowing, nothing tight. "I feel different," she whispered. You are, he replied. You belong only to yourself. She smiled for the first time, but far above them in orbit. A slaver beacon lit up again, this time louder, and it had her old master's name on it. The fire had died down. The small stone room was dim now, lit only by a single flickering light in the corner. Laura sat with the scarf still around her neck, fingers touching the place where the collar used to be. It was strange, that heavy, burning weight was gone, but she still felt it. Like a ghost pressing against her skin, the human Joran. She had learned his name only hours ago, stood near the exit, scanning the snowstorm through a small monitor. His face was tense, focused. Vera, his sister, was prepping gear on a steel table, loading energy cells into weapons Laura didn't recognize. No one had said it aloud, but they all knew something was coming the moment the collar went dark. Someone out there had noticed. Laura finally spoke. You really think they'll come here? Vera looked up. Not think, I know, Joran added, without turning around. Slavers don't let go. Not when they paid for you. Not when they're angry someone broke their leash. Laura's chest tightened. It's my fault. I should have run. I should have known. Joran's voice was sharp, firmer than she'd ever heard it. You don't get to blame yourself for surviving. Laura lowered her eyes, unsure how to answer that. Then the alarm on the wall blinked red soft at first, then faster. Proximity warning, Vera muttered. Something big just entered low orbit. Joran was already moving. He grabbed his coat, pulled on a black chest plate, and slung a weapon over his shoulder. It wasn't sleek or polished. It was old, scratched, heavy, brutal. Laura stared. You're not just some retired soldier, are you? Joran didn't answer right away. He clipped a small metal tag to his belt. It had a faded symbol on it. Terran combat unit she'd only heard about in whispers. I used to be someone bad, he said finally. But now I use what I know to stop people worse than me. Vera pulled open a side drawer and tossed something toward Laura. Catch. Laura barely managed to grab it. It was a small shock, pistol worn but still glowing blue. I don't know how to use this, she said, eyes wide. Then now's a good time to learn, Vera replied. We don't leave anyone helpless here. The ground shook 15 minutes. Later, the air outside filled with the sharp sound of engines. Then came the landing thud. Several ships, not just one. Through the small crack in the door, Laura saw them. Tall alien soldiers in black armor. Their faces hidden behind red visors. Weapons drawn. Symbols of her old master's house glowing on their shoulders. Slaver enforcer's daughter didn't flinch. 6 ships, maybe 25 troops. Small raid team. They want to grab her quick and vanish before locals notice. He looked at Vera. You hold the back tunnel. If they flank, cut them down. She nodded and vanished into the shadows. Then he looked at Laura. You stay behind me. Always. Don't freeze. If I fall, you run. Hear me, she swallowed. You're not going to fall. He gave a dry smile. Hope not. The door exploded before she could say more. A blast of heat. Smoke. Screams. Joren stepped forward into the cloud. Calm and slow like a man used to walking through war. His gun fired once. A slaver dropped. Twice another one fell. Laura stayed behind. A broken table, shaking, gripping the shock pistol with both hands. Through the smoke, one of the slavers spotted her. He raised his weapon. But Joran was faster. He moved like lightning, slammed into the soldier, broke his arm, smashed him into the wall. You don't touch her, he roared. The others hesitated. They weren't expecting this. It's not from one human, Laura. Stared, heart pounding. He wasn't just protecting her. He was defending her like she mattered, like she was worth fighting for. More troops poured in. Joran kept shooting, kept moving. He didn't stop. Even when his arm was grazed by a plasma bolt, Vera's voice crackled through a small cum. Back tunnel secure. I dropped 4, but they've got a flyer circling above. It's probably scanning for escape paths. Joran growled. They brought a scout drone. Worse, Vera said. They brought him. Laura's eyes widened. Who? Vera's voice came back, cold, and heavy. Her old master. Joran turned to Laura, blood on his face, anger in his eyes, but his voice was steady. Get to the ship. Now, what about you? I'll hold them. He won't stop. As she ran toward the exit tunnel, gun in hand, one thought burned in her mind. He didn't buy her to own her. He was ready to die for her freedom, but she wasn't going to let that happen. Not this time. Asterisk, the tunnel was narrow, lining its edges like teeth. Laura ran, boots slipping on the frozen ground, her breath fogging in the cold. Behind her, gunfire echoed sharp, brutal. She could hear Joran's voice shouting orders, then silence, then more blasts. Every second felt like a blade against her spine. Vera's voice came through the small cum in her ear. Half the troops broke off. They're chasing you. They want you alive? That means they're planning to take you, not kill you. Laura stopped running. Her chest burned. Her hand clutched the small shock pistol tighter. Her old self wanted to hide, to curl into the dark and wait for it to pass. But that part of her had died when the collar came off. She turned around. I'm not running anymore. Laura. No, Vera started, but Laura had already crouched beside the tunnel wall. She wiped the frost from the pistol's grip, took a deep breath, and aimed. The first slaver appeared seconds later. Stepping into the dim light, Laura fired. The blast hit his chest and he dropped with a crackle of energy. The second ducked. Was faster, but she adjusted, exhaled, shot again. He fell too. More footsteps came. She didn't care. She was done being prey. Meanwhile, outside, Joran moved like death itself. His coat was torn. Blood ran down his arm, but his eyes burned with fire. 6 slavers surrounded him. He counted bullets, then stopped counting. He dropped his rifle, pulled 2 short blades from his belt, and charged. The first slaver didn't even get to scream. The second tried to run. The third begged. None of them got far. From the hill above, the enemy commander watched through magnified lenses. Tall, dressed in red and black, his face was long and cruel. Laura's old master. He tapped his wrist pad. Bring the war beast. End this. Moments later, something massive dropped from the sky. It wasn't a soldier. It wasn't a ship. It was a hunter drone, a walking mech powered by a live brain. It's 12 feet tall, covered in black armor, red eyes glowing like fire. It scanned the battlefield and locked onto Joren. It roared. Joren looked up, tired but not afraid. He picked up his rifle and stood his ground. The drone charged. Back in the tunnel, Vera had joined Laura. Together, they pushed the slavers back inch by inch. You've changed, Vera said between shots. I just stopped waiting for someone else to save me, Laura replied. She didn't feel like a slave anymore. She felt like something new. Free. They reached the tunnel's end and burst out into the open right. Behind Joran's burning shelter, that's when they saw the mech. Laura froze. What is that? Joran didn't look back, something I hoped I'd never see again. The mech fired a plasma bolt. Joran barely dodged, the ground exploding beside him. Get to the ship, he shouted. No, Laura screamed. We fight. Together, Joran turned. For a second, their eyes locked. He saw the fire in her now, not the frightened girl from the cage, not the shivering body from the auction, but a fighter. He tossed her a power cell, then take its legs. They split up. Vera circled left, drawing fire. Laura crawled through snow, flanking the mech's blind side. She climbed a half-frozen ridge, aimed down, and fired at the knee joint. Sparks, the mech staggered Joren through a small charge at its chest. An old Terran device called a fire core. It latched on and pulsed red. Down. He roared. They all dove behind rocks. The explosion shook the mountain. When the smoke cleared, the mech was on fire, its chest open, systems failing. It still stood, but only just. Laura didn't stop. She ran straight at it. The mech lifted one arm to swat her away. Too slow, she jumped, landed on the mech's shoulder, found the power core slot, and fired. The shock pistol sparked, then exploded in her hand. The mech screamed a horrible metallic roar, then collapsed. Backward into the snow, dead, ashes now. Silence fell. Joren limped toward her. "You okay?" She nodded, hand shaking. "Better than okay." He placed his hand on her shoulder, not as a master, not even just as a protector, but as someone who believed in her. "You saved me," he said. "You saved me first," she replied. Above them, the enemy commander's ship began to race, escaping before Joren could reach him. But Laura didn't watch him flee. She didn't care anymore. She was free, and nothing would ever put a collar on her again. The fire had burned low again, this time in a safer place inside Joren's ship, the Sparrow. The battle was over. The mech was destroyed. The slaver ships were gone. And Laura was still standing. She sat on a bench near the engine room, arms around her knees, wrapped in the same gray coat he had first given her. But now it wasn't a gift from a stranger. It was comfort from someone she trusted. Vera had already left. She didn't say goodbye. She wasn't the type. She just gave Laura a nod, a look that said, "You're stronger now," and vanished into the snow. That was enough. Now it was just her and Joren. He was quiet as always, standing across from her, fixing a long cut along his shoulder. He winced, but didn't complain. He'd taken worse. He always did. Laura looked at him, really looked, the roughness in his hands, the years behind his eyes. He wasn't beautiful, not like the glowing alien men she had once seen in her old masters. Parties. But there was something better in him, something solid. He had never touched her without asking. He had never raised his voice. He had never looked at her like she was property. He had bought her, but never owned her, and now he didn't even seem to know what to say. So she did something she had never done before. She broke the silence. "Why didn't you ever tell me what you wanted?" He looked up, confused. "What I wanted you paid for me? You rescued me. You fought for me, but you never once asked for anything in return." He gave a soft breath. It's almost a laugh. Because that's not what saving someone means. She looked down. Her hands were still bruised from the fight. "I thought humans were cruel," she whispered. "All of us did." Joren sat beside her now, carefully. "Some are. You're not." "No," he said, "but I was." Before she turned her head. "What changed?" He looked at her for a long moment. "I met someone who still had light inside them. Even after everything, and it made me want to carry that light too." Took her a moment to realize he meant her. Her breath caught. "You think I have light?" He didn't smile, but his voice softened. "You could have run, Laura. You could have hidden while I fought, but you didn't. You came back for me." She shrugged. "I had to." "No," he said gently. "You chose to." That word again, choose. Later. As the ship lifted off the icy moon, Laura stood at the front window. The stars stretched again. They were going somewhere new, somewhere far. Joren walked in quietly. "We'll reach the next system in a few days. No slaver beacons out there, just quiet." She didn't turn. "What happens then?" "Whatever you want." She turned now, looked at him with calm eyes. "You could leave me there. Drop me off at a station. You'd be free of me." His voice was steady. "I didn't take you to throw you away." "Then what do you want me to be?" He shook his head. "Not mine, not a slave, not something broken." She stepped closer. "Then what?" He looked into her eyes. "I want you to be free." Laura took his hand. Not as an order, not out of fear. By choice. And in that touch, slow, human, there was no hunger, no demand, just warmth, just peace. That night, she lay in her bed. staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, she didn't sleep with one eye open. For the first time in her life, she wasn't waiting for pain. There was no collar on her neck, no chain on her wrist, only the quiet hum of the sparrow flying through space, and one quiet truth in her heart. He had given her pleasure, yes, but not of the body, of the soul.